you all in the chat. We have taken a slight hiatus. There's been so much going on the smile side, but we are back. Hello to everyone. So some people, I can't see your name, but I just see LinkedIn user. So hello to everyone that is joining us. We are so excited to be back with you for another LinkedIn Live with Smile Therapy. And we're going to get started. So for those who may not know me, my name is Christy Venable, and I am the CEO of Smile Therapy Services. Just a little bit about Smile. We are a mental health and wellness agency. We're based in the DMV area, so DC. And we provide services really throughout the U.S. And we really focus on improving workplace culture by providing individualized mental health and wellness support services for companies and their employees. So definitely great to have you all with us. Good evening, good afternoon. And as we get underway, first, I definitely want to send our support and prayers to the people of Puerto Rico. Let's make sure that we are just following up on that situation and that we are supporting organizations who are supporting the people that's on the ground. I was very lucky to receive some information from a colleague of mine who actually is from Puerto Rico. Her and her family was affected by the hurricane and everything that's going on there. She did provide me with some links. And we're going to put that into the chat so that you all can know some actual organizations that's there that is helping them. So let's make sure that we do our part and support our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. And so we can get those links in the chat there. She gave me quite a few organizations. So we'll put that in the chat, and please make sure you go and visit them and give your support. Okay, we are going to get started. We have two amazing guests today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We are going to start off with Ms. Devyn Mitchell.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Devyn Mitchell, and I am a school-based therapist. The school that I am at is Friendship Tech Prep, the high school, and I'm also a community-based therapist here in DC. It's so nice to see you all in the chat, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation.
Thank you, Devyn. And then we have Mr. Garry Cameron.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garry Cameron, and I am an Academy Director at Friendship Southeast, which is the equivalent to Assistant Principal. And I also just got out of the classroom myself this past year. And so now I get to see what it was like as a teacher and now an administrator. So hopefully I can share, or we can get some more information for people on how you balance that, that transition today. And just, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you to Ms. Venable for inviting me on here.
Yes, well, thank you for accepting. So as I said, they actually work in the school. And so I'm grateful that they both were able to just accommodate their schedule. If you work in the school, you know how schools are. Even after school, you are still managing things and dealing with things. So I appreciate them being able to be flexible and join us today. So we're going to get it started. And our first question to them is, school is underway. Even though we are not quite out of the pandemic, but we are returning to some type of normalcy, I'm really interested to hear, how has the start of the school year been for you all? And so you both have different roles. And so, just talk about what has that looked like for you? So either one of you can get started.
So I can start. So it's been a lot happening here at school. Last year, my office was positioned in a different building. And so this year is a little bit different for me because I'm in the main building. So there are some pros and cons to that. I am definitely more accessible to the students and staff members, but I'm also immersed in a lot of what's going on from day to day, versus kind of being, on the outskirts. But overall, I would say that the students have been pretty active in a lot of ways, negative and positive, which also means that the staff and the teachers are active as well. But I'm enjoying it. I love my role and I love being here. So overall, I still am enjoying the school year.
Good to hear. And look, and it just started. It feels probably like it's the middle of the school year. All right, Mr. Campbell. All right, how about you?
I was sitting over here trying to figure out which answer to give you, the political or the real, right?
Give us the real. We don't want any political answers here. We want the real deal.
Okay. So for me, it has been a huge transformation, a huge lift from coming out, like I stated before, coming out of the classroom. I'm just worrying about your one classroom or your team of students on a grade level, right? Versus being responsible for children and adults. And like the size of the room or the size of the control that I now have has increased by like 10 times. So like if I was, responsible for about 30 people, I'm responsible for 300 plus people now, right? That's including adults and children. So I'm not gonna lie, it's been very taxing. Very taxing since the beginning of the school year, just because I throw my emotions into everything that I do. And so I try, to figure out every possible way to support all people, right? Whether that's teachers or students, right? And so that's been very challenging to do, right? To balance that, right? So it's been like issue after issue after issue. And I think for me, it's in this new role is figuring out how do I balance grace with discipline, right? Because you're still going to have to be held accountable for what it is that you do. But like, how do I, in this new position, get to know you first, right? Without calling home right away and, just building that relationship with you as an administrator, right? Because sometimes people see the administrators as these people who are just the people that sit in office. And for me, I try to be in the mix, right? So I throw myself into the work. So I'm in classrooms, I'm in hallways, I'm in meetings. And so for me, everywhere where children are or adults may need support, that's where I am, right? And so that I've had to like learn how to peel back a little bit and adjust my schedule because I felt even in the first couple of weeks, like a slight burnout. I remember just like even after the second week, I think I just sat at my house and just tears just started flowing because I think just being upset with how things are going, right? And like everybody's like, no, they're going really well, better than they were before. But I think for me, like it's like you see stuff and stuff are not changing as fast as you want to, but just having to tell myself that everything is a process. And so you just got here and knowing that things won't happen in the first 6 weeks. They'll probably take the first year to get to where you need to be. But it has been a little challenging. I'm not even going to lie about that. Some good work, some good challenging, right? But I guess, like even stepping outside of the classroom, like, telling people like, if you think you're ready, you really might not be ready, right? So not saying that I wasn't, because it's something that I wanted to do for a long time. But even in this pandemic, I'm in this space just trying to deal with everybody because we're still in the pandemic, right? Even though they're not really calling it that, but we're still there. And I think this is the first year where we're going to feel like the real effects. Like everybody came back last year, but that was like the test out year, right? Now, this is who I am. This is who I was during the pandemic, and this is what you have, right? So trying to figure out how you deal with all of that.
Yes. And, one, thank you for your honesty because it is tough. And I think that you hit on something that's super important, and we're only in the 4th or 5th week of school. And you talked about feeling burnt out within your 2nd week. And so for me, it's, hard to imagine how teachers are going to feel, just after maybe another month when some of them may be experiencing the same thing that you are when they are already feeling burnt out, which really leads us to our next question of how is that teacher shortage / substitute shortage affecting the classrooms? Because I think that it is a tremendous amount of pressure on the teachers that are still there. And so what are you all seeing by way of how are you managing as an administrator with this shortage? And how are you managing as a mental health professional with helping the school with these different shortages?
So I can start first since this is like a direct correlation with the job that I do on a daily basis. For us, I'm so thankful that we had been like 95% staffed. But that still doesn't mean that you don't need to support people, because also people have called out, right? So as we're almost fully staffed, right? People are still, putting in days and saying that they need moments, and life is still happening for people, right? So we have to understand that, right? So I think for us is just roll up our sleeves and just whoever could support, whether that's myself, whether that's the instructional coach, whether that's whoever is available. We need you in front of children. And I just think that, we're all in this together. And so we just try to cover as best as we can, right? So even that means rearranging some of my meetings for the day to go sit in this classroom, then that's what I'm getting ready to do. Because at the end of the day, the children came to school to learn, right? And so whatever it is that I have to do to help get that to be a thing, then that's what's going to happen, right? And I think that we've been also lucky to kind of have two building subs, right? Two subs in the building, two permanent subs in the building, which sometimes even they're busy and people are still out. So we're going to all still need hands on deck. But I do know with a lot of work that I do across the country with trying to get people to become educators, I do know that some people are way are in a different position than us, and it's not even anywhere close. I think some people are like half staff, and I couldn't even imagine what that's like, right? Because that means your regular job you're not doing, because there's not enough people to do to teach kids. So I think for us, we've been lucky in that instant, but I can feel and understand where some people some systems and schools are. And I know that it's not a good place. It's very stressful, because then you still got to deal with parent concerns, because parents are just sending kids to school and they just want you to educate them, right? They don't really want to hear that you don't have a teacher. My son doesn't have a fourth grade teacher right now. So it's like one of those things like, how do I do? So then from leaving from here, all that, I got decompressed to get home and get ready to teach him some math, right? Because he doesn't have that. So it's definitely a lift. I'm thankful that we don't have that, but I am feeling that from the effects of my son's school, because they don't have a math teacher. So I have to go home and be the math teacher, right? So, yeah.
Wow. And that's real, right? And how many parents are in that same position, but they don't have the capacity to be the math teacher when their child comes home? And this is why this subject is so important, because this is the future of our children. The state of their education is definitely in limbo. So definitely thank you for that. And that's actually eye-opener too, because we got to think about the parents with all of this, and managing that your child may not have a teacher in the classroom. And so what do you do as a parent to help them to obtain that knowledge that they may need? Wow. So important. Ms. Mitchell.
So what I've observed is that a lot of these teachers have experienced some stress and burnout too, because a lot of times they're having to cover classes and cover content that's not really their expertise, or they don't feel confident or competent in it. And I think that is starting to weigh heavy, wondering, okay, when are we going to find someone for this subject? Because I don't really feel confident in teaching it. I think from some of the students' perspective, that I've seen is they're bored in class, and they're not really feeling like they're learning it. So I imagine maybe parents are probably unhappy with that. But Yeah, I've really seen a lot of the teachers like, I don't know this. Like, and they also have, I don't know all the roles that the teachers have, but I know they have a lot of deliverables due. They have lessons plans that they have to do. And so even having to create lesson plans for a class that they don't have any knowledge of, or maybe not any knowledge, but it's just not their strong point.
Speak on it. Speak on it.
Can be really stressful. So I try to, when I'm able to, allow them to kind of vent for a little bit about that. But I think that's really what I've seen a lot lately.
Wow.
Oh, sorry. I just saw that comment.
And thank you for whoever just put that in the comments. That's exactly where I was going.
Yes.
So this notion of us not having enough teachers and some teachers not being able to teach the content, kids not having the appropriate personnel in their classrooms definitely leads to behavior issues.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the kids being bored, and kids, being kids, they act out when they're bored. And it's crazy because, well, I literally just had a conversation with my sister and my nephew, who is a baby genius. He is in class bored and he's being a behavior issue. And so now it's really on us to work with the school on how to best support him. And this is now kind of nationwide. What do we do for our students who, whether they are high achievers or not, what do we do for them? Because at the end of the day, they're all bored, right? If they're not having a teacher in there who is really teaching to their expertise, or a teacher in general. And so what do we do for them, right? It's definitely a major issue because we are seeing a lot of behavior issues. We just had a crisis, at one of our schools that we work with. So we're seeing a lot of crisis situations, a lot of behavior issues, which is only escalating the teacher stress and the administrator stress. Because they are the ones that have to manage those issues. And so I know we spoke about teacher and substitute shortages, but I actually just posted something a couple of days ago regarding an article that I read. And not only are we having those shortages, but we also are having mental health shortages, right? The mental health support staff shortages. Whereas we're missing our school counselors or a school social worker, right? And we're feeling that at Smile, we have a school-based program, and it's difficult for us to find school-based therapists because a lot of people are not wanting to go into the schools right now, right? For different reasons. And it's like, how do we combat that? What do we do for them? Because they still need the support, right? The students need the mental health support and the educational support. And then the teachers also need some support. And so what do we do? And I think that's I don't know if we all have the solution, but that's kind of where we are, the state of the school system right now. And so we do have I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Cameron. You were about to say.
I was just I guess to your point, one thing that we kind of do in what I do on my floor, I'm in our building too. It's almost like a game of tag that we play, but it's game of tag meaning that I'm going to come in, or one of my coaches is going to come in and give you some relief time. So you give you about 15 minutes when we know that it's been a day, or we know if there's been a situation inside the classroom, we like tap in, right? So we did tap out. We have a thing in our building, like if you are stressed out, then tap out, right? Tap out, but let somebody know that you're going to tap out so that we can tap in and we can give you some coverage, right? Or whatever. It might be a moment where you don't get to, you might not get to speak to anybody, right? But then you are able to just take a walk, or just go calm down, listen to a song, listen to some music or something. And it just brings me back to the different industries. I know that there are performance coaches for people who are in the stock market, or who are dealing with people's money, right? Because you're dealing with large sums of money, right? And it would just be really nice that if we had, that support, or that mental health support for teachers, just for teachers, right? So if you needed a moment that we can get you back together, and then you can then go back to class, right? Because then they did whatever they needed to do in a quick amount of time. Because I think that's what it is, like, because you can't tell people not to feel, because they're gonna feel, right? And so I try to do a good job of getting people, and they know that they have to tap out, even just to use the bathroom, right? That you had to use the bathroom, right? But we try to do a good job of supporting. And I think that, especially from the lens of me just coming out of the classroom in the pandemic, knowing what people may need, I think I just still lead with the lens of being an educator, with it being a teacher, right? We're educators, but just that teacher lens on how to support you is what I'm trying to do here in the capacity that I'm currently in.
And I think that's such a good point. As an administrator, you really have to be supportive to the teachers. I literally was looking at a clip on Facebook of a teacher who she quit. She left the classroom. She left the school system, and she talked about how her administration was not supportive, and how she had to manage so many different negative behaviors, in addition to, the shortages and everything. And she wasn't getting any support. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is definitely something that is imperative, to even help the teacher get through the day, honestly. So we have a question. I'm going to pin this question really quickly. Shar says, is there room for teachers to be creative with delivering content? I'm going to say yes. Mr. Cameron, what do you say?
I'd say a resounding yes, right? At this moment, we got to do things differently, right? We haven't figured out this new school, even though we're in a new school. And I think that everybody just came from the pandemic and went back into their traditional buildings. And like, yes, the building is still here, right? But what you do inside of it needs to change, right? So delivering more engaging content is what's going to have to happen, right? So taking a lesson, and if you're learning something about commission, you're doing tax, you're doing anything like that, tax tip, you might want to change that into a lesson on real estate, right? Getting kids to learn how to, like, if you are a realtor, you can get commission. If you are these type of jobs, that have that, to get them to connect to a real world thing, so they're able to process that and be like, okay, I can see how I use this, right? So now when people say, I'm never going to use Pythagorean theorem, you're going to have to figure out like what's a way to be able to make it engaging and exciting. Like, yes, you will do it, right? And this is what you do, right? And I think also inside of that, right, I think it's being able to take our kids outside of the building, right? So being able to take them on field experiences, I think that's what's gonna, get people to settle down a little bit, not just having people, because everybody's been inside. During the pandemic, you had to stay inside. So we can't really stay inside anymore when people had to stay inside for such a long time. So being able to provide, different field experiences, or even just taking your class and doing class outside for like 20, 30 minutes is going to be something that will definitely allow them to get some freedom and some movement. And I also think another one of these things, right, we try to harp on like having recess, because we're in Southeast, right? Southeast DC, when we know there's shootings, killings all the time, right? School is one of the safest places other than the home for them to be. So going outside, giving them their recess, letting them run around, because they can't do it when they go back inside. When they go back inside, is something that we try to focus on here and make sure that everybody has, because that's the moment for SEL too. When the kids get out there and they just scream at the top of their lungs, please do it. Get your like do what it is that you need to do that makes your heart happy in that moment, so that we could come back in and return to learning.
Yes, and I'll also add that, yes, for tech prep as well, I've seen a lot of teachers do field experiences, taking them on field trips. We even have a few more sports here at school, which is also helpful. I think sometimes the problem that I've noticed, going back to the teachers covering classes, is being creative with content that like you're not very familiar with. And I think that's one of the stresses that I've seen from teachers here. But I do believe that they definitely have the opportunity to be creative here.
Perfect. That's
I think also to add one more thing, Ms. Venable, I think even as administrators, I think we set the environment up for teachers. Yes. So being able to, and I know right now I'm trying to work with a lot of community partners to come inside the building to provide some, some relief or some assistance, right? Just working with different organizations, like even if you're just going to be another body in the room, that's going to be able to assist, right? But just as an administrator, just trying to figure out how do you leverage different partnerships, to be able to get the experience you want for teachers, right? Because teachers might not be all creative, or just being creative in a lesson takes a lot, right? So how do we bring people in so that, or how do we provide professional development around like making engaging lessons, right? Because at the end of the day, like Ms. Mitchell was referring to, we have state tests, right? We have to take the part. We still have to do that, right? So you can't really be too creative in that notion, because we're still required to take short cycle exams, intermodule exams, and the part test and MAP, right? So it's like a fine line, but I think that also the creativity comes with the amount of time that you've probably been inside the classroom. So I would say teachers who've been in classrooms longer, right, probably could have more autonomy, but those ones that are just starting outside the classroom, to tell you to be creative, like that might be too much of a lift, and you might be able to burn out there, right? So it's also, again, just think about who, from an administrative perspective, who's on your staff and the supports they need. Just like all the students in the classroom, like every student needs something different. Every teacher needs something different, and just knowing what to provide each teacher.
Yeah. And so we're actually getting some good questions in the comments. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue to show their questions. So it says LinkedIn user, but I've been told that this person is Lakia Umo. So she says, so do you all think it's a shortage of staff because they're not being hired, or because people just don't want to work in the school system because they don't feel supported? What do you guys think? I have different thoughts.
Yeah,
different thoughts.
It's dicey, right? For me, it's dicey because I think just listening to we've had vacancies in several schools that I worked at prior to the pandemic and even during the pandemic, and just the quality of people that are trying to enter this profession is not where it needs to be, right? So I think we get a lot of applicants, right? But then we look at it and we just can't do our children like that. They wouldn't be good for children. So there is a shortage because I think some people step out of the profession and don't want to do it anymore. But then there is a shortage of where people want to kind of do the job, but don't necessarily have the credentials. And we just don't want to put anybody in front of children. And I know our job is also to develop, but I think even some of the resumes that we see, it's probably like hard for us to even start and say, what is your track of development going to look like? and can you really even make it, right? Because that's the thing. If you have worked with children before, like to try to come work with children after a pandemic, I don't know. We just got to think about who we hire, because it's going to make more problems. Like in the hiring process, when I had to hire some people this summer, I was just thinking about like, okay, is this person coachable? Is this person going to be able to take feedback? Is this person going to be able to be here? Are they good for our children, right? And if they fit the mold to that, then we proceeded. If they didn't, then we just had to make some hard no's, because we knew that at the end of the day, I'm going to be the administrator and I have to deal with it anyway, right? So just trying to be, get in front of that and just be proactive instead of reactive.
Perfect. Devyn, what's your thoughts on that?
I was going to say the latter, but once I listened to Mr. Cameron's response, I could definitely see how, you have to be really, it's important of who you put in front of the children, because, even last year I've seen teachers that didn't return for different reasons. And so that is important, who you put in front of the kids. We need somebody who's going to be here and not always calling off, because then that other problem comes that I keep mentioning. It's like, then now somebody else has to cover your class that, that's not their strength. And then it leads to students being bored, which leads to the behavior problems. So that is something that you have to assess at the beginning of the process. So I would agree with both. I think it's both. And then when they get burnt out, they may leave. And so you want to make sure, and I know we're probably going to talk about this at the end, it's like, how are you taking care of yourself so you don't get burnt out and either leave, or now you're teaching in this environment stressed out, because that can have a negative impact as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you both. I think that what people don't understand is, even though, I know people may have dreams of being teachers, but I always tell people, school is a different beast. And being inside of a school and managing the kids, and their behaviors and everything that comes with it, the parents, their behaviors and everything that comes with that. It is not for everyone, unfortunately. And I think that coupled with issues within the school system in general that really needs to be revamped, on top of not getting support that, they may need depending on who their administrators are, on top of managing just behaviors. It is very difficult to be inside of a school. And I think that we don't give our educators and administrators enough praise, and even school support staff, because you have some aides that work very hard, and I know for a fact get paid very little. And so, how do we show our school staff that we support them? When they are making pennies on a dollar, and they are responsible for, I believe, the most important job that you can have in this nation, and that's educating the future. And so, it's a lot of different reasons, but I also think a lot of people now are leaving just because of trying to figure out COVID and managing that. And how do you, help the school staffs to be safe, and put things in place to be safe. And I think that was that was a major issue for a lot of educators and school professionals on why they decided not to go back. And then actually DC had the mandate to get their COVID shot. And so a lot of people didn't, some people didn't really want to do that. And so they chose to leave instead of getting a vaccination. And so, at the end of the day, everyone has to do what's best for them. And so I think that's why I say it's a myriad of reasons why there's a shortage right now. Definitely. Thank you guys so much for the questions. We're going to get back to the questions. I do see the comments, but we're going to go to our next question. And I wanted to ask, what types of mental health supports do you guys feel like are needed for educators and administrators to help them to have a successful school year and to not actually fall prey to burnout?
So I will say that from feedback that I've heard, that teachers like money. So an increase in salary, that is a form of self-care. Mental health days, there's our extra PTO days off. I know at Smile we offer services for adults as well. What was I going to say? Just different incentives. You mentioned celebrating the employees. And I will say here at Tech Prep, I really feel like that they have kind of amped that up a little bit more this year, making sure that they acknowledge that we have like Titan of the Week, we have Employee of the Month. And so different incentives for the students as well. And so I think even with the professional development, having different people come in, like Mr. Cameron said, and it can also be like a self-care thing, having, different programs to relieve them. I think those would be helpful for the teachers to give them a little break. I know we have our half days on Fridays, and so maybe allowing them to meet virtually for the remainder of the day. I know last year there were days that they were required to be here in person. So just, I think some little things like that would be helpful for the teachers. That's what I've heard.
Thank you, Devyn. And Mr. Cameron, you definitely alluded to some of them, some things that you were doing for your staff to just give them a break having the tap out system, and you all really working as a team to push into the classroom. Would you say, you have any other suggestions on any mental health supports that could be helpful?
I think what Ms. Mitchell was alluding to it as well. I think your organization, if you work for an organization, because even for some of those times, we do have those wellness days built in. I think it's like once every 2 months or something like that, or once every month or something. I can't remember the frequency of it, but there are more than what I've heard from other organizations that we actually had these wellness days built in. So I think that's important. From there, I think it's also just to create a safe space for educators, right? So for me, like, I know sometimes there are our special teachers have to push into the classes, right? So then teachers don't have anywhere to go. So offering up my space, offering up my office, even if I have to take a meeting, for them to have a moment to sit down and plan. I have the refrigerator in here, I have a microwave in here. So it becomes like a little lounge-ish area for teachers, but it's a moment for them to, have conversations. And oftentimes I just let them sit in here without me, so they can, be able to speak freely and talk about what they need to talk about. So, I think that's really been helpful too. And this is really just, I think, really going to people and just saying, are you okay? Right. I think just the simplest thing is just checking in and saying, how you doing today? Like, I make sure I try to get here early. I try to unlock everybody's door, try to speak to people, just different things that you don't have to think about because you might have left your key, and that's another stressor. So you just try to, as an educator, I just think about all the things that I had to deal with, or with some frustrations as a teacher. And so I just try to, get in front of that as an administrator.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And something that we have been really pushing for schools is to do more, like you said, preventative things. And so provide some, I'm so glad you used the word safe space, because that's exactly the different things that we do, right? Provide safe spaces for organizations and employees. That is so needed, to just have a space where you feel free to release the different things that you may be going through, and to receive that support from your colleagues, because you all are, mainly dealing with the same things. And so being able to create those safe spaces for educators can be vital. And also having the wellness workshops for them, right? We're really trying to push school districts to integrate wellness workshops into the school year, right? That can include self-care, that can talk about managing anxiety and depression, that can look like educating on seasonal, affective disorder. I mean, it look like a lot of different things that's really helpful for them that they may be struggling with. So those are some other things that I think we could push in to help support the mental health of educators and administrators. And so I'm going to go to a question that Ms. Barbara had, which is a great question. She said, do you believe SEL, for those who don't know what SEL stands for social emotional learning, is crucial to be incorporated at school? What is the process in incorporating this component for students to have this available, and what will it entail to achieve it? Great questions.
That's loaded
questions. We will unload that for the audience, but actually both of you all are well versed in SEL. Mr. Cameron was a teacher, like he told you guys, but he actually incorporated SEL inside of his classroom. And Ms. Mitchell, because she is a school-based therapist, that's something that she does as well as a part of her program. So, to answer her questions, one, do you feel like it's crucial? And then two, how can we incorporate it?
I don't know how you do the job without incorporating SEL right now. I really just don't. SEL for teachers, SEL for students, I really don't. When I was a teacher, I was featured on ABC 7 for having Mindful Monday, because I made all my students change their screen names to positive affirmations so that they can, be able to live that out, especially being at home. So much so that at my new school now, we have Mindful Mondays and we have Wellness Wednesdays, right? And so our school counselors, social workers come up with lessons for every Monday and Wednesday that we do an advisory. And we also have adopted an advisory curriculum, right? So during and it's all SEL. So during advisory time, they do these SEL lessons, and so a lot of the kids, one lesson in particular was just the breathing. They really enjoyed that, right? So you like these strategies that we think won't work for our students, we have to try them, right? Because they actually do work for our students, and they actually enjoy it, and so just instilling some of those things and those practices, and really just having SEL is at the forefront. And I think we even shifted our practices here at the organization to lift up SEL. So it's important your organization follows your administration. My principal believes in it. And I think that when you start doing that, and you have the support staff in your building that could also support it. I think a lot of people talk about SEL but don't know how to really support that. So having the full student support team on board to show and model what that looks like for some of our educators, because some people just don't think SEL is important, right? And so just how do you get them to understand that SEL is important, and that's how you should be leading and doing this work.
So I will thank you, Mr. Cameron. I will say, yes, it is crucial to be incorporated at school. Here at Tech Prep, well, one, I always try to incorporate it in my sessions, whether they're individual or group. But we're also trying to work to push it into our advisory classes. Last year, so our school is a college prep school, so we do have lessons that cater to preparing them to go to college. But we have been working to push it into the advisory. We had I forget the name that it was, but it was a whole day dedicated to SEL. And so we're trying to have more of those this year. We're even doing another one at another friendship school this year. And also I think just with the PDs kind of teaching the teachers about SEL so they can incorporate it, so they understand it, and they can use these things in their lessons as well. And so, yeah, so we're definitely trying to make sure that we're incorporating that in the classroom.
Yes. And so, just to piggyback to what both of you said, it is so important. Social emotional learning really should be intertwined at every school, every level, even for the younger kids, because you can teach them different things when they're upset, teach them how to breathe, teach them how to count to 10. And so it's super important for all of the schools to just integrate it so that the kids are learning coping strategies and learning how to regulate themselves, right? We teach all of those different things within that social emotional learning curriculum. So definitely thank you, Barbara, for that question. We all, as you have seen, we all are definitely advocates for SEL within the school system, because we definitely know that it is very helpful for the students. So thank you so much for that question. And so now we are going to kind of wrap it up. I want to know from you all, how are you both incorporating self-care into your routine? And what advice do you have for others working in the school system?
So I can go. So some things that I'm doing, I do pray. That really helps me to kind of, stay grounded in such what can be sometimes a chaotic environment. Sorry, they're making some announcements. I also try to exercise probably like 4 to 5 times a week. One of the staff members here, they connected me to a trainer that a lot of us here at Tech Prep go there together. So we do that like 3 times a week. And then I also make sure that I try to make time to just have my own time where I'm exercising by myself. But that has helped us to not only bond, but kind of just release some, frustration that we might have. Also, just allowing myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling for that day, allowing just time, even if it's like 5-10 minutes, to kind of just feel like, today was a rough day, and, giving myself that space. And then I do have my own therapist. And so I make sure that I don't miss those appointments with her because yes, that helps me as well. So those are some of the things that I do. In addition to that, just also making sure that I'm eating and not, working so long that I miss my meals. Um, and, I know that all of us probably work a lot of hours, so finding time to cook is hard. I just went ahead and say, you know what, I'm gonna have some meals delivered because I can't. I need to eat and I don't have time to do it. So sometimes you just have to make those sacrifices. So those are some of the things that I do. What was your second part to that question? I'm sorry, Christine.
Yeah, just what advice would you give to other people in the schools?
My advice is to learn how to say no to some things, have a hard stop. Um, yeah, because we can just end up working like 12, 13 hours a day and getting like five, probably less than that hours of sleep. And I know some of the staff members here, they have to be here really early. They probably have to get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And I'm like, whew. So, yes, having a hard stop. And, I applaud you, Mr. Cameron, that you have this open door that you let people in. Sometimes you may have to put a sign on your door and be like, look, today y'all might have to find somewhere else to go. But yeah, making sure I tell my friends all the time, like, make sure that you eat your meals. Like, please do not skip. Even my students, they say they don't like the food, and so I'm just like, they'll go the whole day without eating. And so yeah, make sure that you eat, have a hard stop. Sometimes you do have to say no. You do have to set those boundaries. That's my advice.
Well, Miss Mitchell, you gave me a whole lot of stuff I was writing down because I'm not. I guess for me, I have to do a better job of taking care of my self care. So it's not there. I think I'm really trying to find a balance in this new role. Um, so what something that's been very helpful for me is a calendar, right? So I was a person who lived on a calendar before, but if it's not on my calendar, I'm not doing it, or I don't have time for it. Even it's planned, like even family time is planned, like personal time is planned, like the gym is planned, right? I haven't been able to get there as much as possible, but I get about 20,000 steps a day. So just from walking. So I think that, that's not healthy because I also have to, this gym does provide a sort of place where you can sit and just reflect. And so one thing that's built on my calendar too, that I kind of do before I get ready to leave here every day is a reflection period. So I force myself to reflect, almost journal about 25, 30 minutes, like whatever I need to get down, I get it down. So I can leave it right here and the book stays here. So I can not take it home with me. I try to do a good job of that, but it's kind of hard. Of doing that because it's school all around in my house. Like my wife works at a school, she's an administrator. My son goes to the school that she works at. So it's just a whole lot of school all the time. And so it's very hard for us to kind of shut it down. And so during the week, I told myself in work mode, but Saturdays and Sundays, I don't touch anything. I promise you I don't. I really don't. And most mornings, every morning, I'm listening to gospel music because I feel like, as I can think about and pray for people. So just much about the prayer. But some mornings is also, let's put on Nuck If You Buck, because I got to get in here and get ready for whatever's about to happen for the day, because I just know it's going to be a day, right? So it's one of those things where I try to find a nice balance between yes, and my gospel music and other music that gets me kind of in the mode to get ready to do work and roll up my sleeves. But yes, I had to do a better job of going to that, doing more of SEO for me, because I think I'm for everybody. So I try to make sure everybody else has their SEO. But then people have to ask me, like somebody asked me the other day, they just looked at me and I think I just looked that tired. It's like, are you going to quit? Like, are you? And I'm like, no, there's no quit in me. But I guess, just thinking about how I wear my emotions on my sleeves. So trying to figure that part out of the job, right? Because I kind of do everything with heavy emotion because I'm all in for everybody. But I also know that kind of is a deterrent. So like if I'm looking and feeling that way, then teachers are like, bruh, like, and so not to try to pass off like, different things, because people then inherit like what you kind of do and how you feel. And so for me, I took notes, and I probably need to come over there and just get my SEL moment with you, Miss Mitchell, and be like, listen, like I just need it right now, and sometimes I do take a walk. So during the day, like if it becomes that much, like I think I found myself last week, I just went outside and sat on the bleachers just for about 5 minutes and just let the sun hit me. And just reflect and just know that, these things. And I tell myself, it's like, people are not really mad at you. Their situations that they're going through, that's what they're mad at. And they haven't had the mental health support to be able to articulate what it is that they're frustrated with, right? So half the time we're going to get all that first, and then we get to go under the layer and be like, oh man, right? And so I do have to do a better job. And I think that I signed up to do my counseling through Smile Therapy before, and that didn't happen. But like the way I'm feeling lately, like baby, we signed up by Friday. I got my payments ready, like my little, because I really feel like I really do need to talk to somebody, because oftentimes I really feel like, am I crazy? Like, because I just do what it is, do all these things, and sometimes you don't get that result. So also knowing that, time is a thing. And so I also have to tell myself, all things are not going to happen overnight. And I talk to a lot of people in this role. And I think it's also helpful to talk to other people in this role as a part of SEL, because then it makes it feel like you're not the only one going through it, and it's not happening to you. Right. And so I think I kind of practice SEL in more informal type of ways, but I think I do need to inherit some of those formal type of ways, because those actually will have a greater and long lasting effect. So I struggle with that. And thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for providing me with some strategies, but I do need to get to that, right? And then I think it was this weekend, right? I realized that I had to get to it, because I just work, and like a whole bunch of my buddies just called, and I spent an hour with each of them on the phone. I was like, I wouldn't have to spend that much time, even though it was good, right? If I checked in more, because I figured out how much I'm missing and figured out how much I need my boys, because they know me and they could tell me, all that. So I put like standing meetings on the calendar with them too. So they are now a part of my calendar, so we can have our guide time. I also like to bowl, and bowling is one of those things for me. I'm one of the younger people in the league, but because most of the older people, but it's a game which requires a lot of skill. And in that moment, I don't really have to think about anything but just the pins and the ball. And so just being able to do things that will, get that SEL. And I also play flag football, so I can get that extra aggression out by playing from the week. So sometimes they're like, oh man, it must have been a rough week. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
First of all, I just loved everything that was said, from the gospel music to Nuck If You Buck, because you do need a balance of both in the school system, because the kids will take you there. So I love it. I hope the audience, I hope you guys have received, just something to help you all, especially if you're in the school system. But also if you're a parent, right? Think about the things that you can do to support the school staff. We didn't really get into the parent conversation, because we can talk about that for hours. But as a parent, how can you support your students or your child's teacher or your child's administrator, right? They are there pouring into your kids the whole day, right? And sometimes your kid may receive it or may not, may give them a challenge or may not. And so I think we have to do a better job of working together, because we're all in this together for our students. So definitely a great conversation. Let us know if you have any other questions. I am checking I am checking the comments. They have been some great ones. I'm just going to show a few of them. Talking about someone said, thanks, that's so great, Devyn, buying back your time. Yes, right? You have to think about what is going to be best for you, what works for you. So if you have to buy your meals, right? Oh, and someone's, we knucking and bucking. Yes, I support that. Definitely. And we also going to praise the Lord, of course. And she said, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for your openness and transparency. This must be Lakia Umo again. Say, very good conversation. Thank you to all. We are going to wrap it up. We really appreciate everyone joining us today. Your questions were great. Your engagement was great. Please continue if you have any additional questions. If you are watching this on the replay and you have questions, please put them in the comments. We will review the questions afterwards. I just want to give a huge thank you to Miss Devyn Mitchell and Mr. Garry Cameron. They are working so hard in their respective schools with their students, with the staff. And it is not easy, right? Everyone knows school is my first love. I was a school counselor, I feel like, for umpteen years. And it was difficult, but I loved every minute of it, right? And so I always say you have to, that has to be for you. School has to be for you. And it was definitely for me. And that's why I'm still in school. Look, that's why I can't get out of the school. They actually think I still work at the school, but I don't. So I appreciate and I honor school staff at all times. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for a great conversation, all of your tips and tricks. We definitely appreciate it. Like I said, let us know if you have any other questions. And do you all have any final words to the audience?
I guess for me, what and people are telling me, but like, take care of you before something forces you to take care of you, right? And so I'll say that one more time: take care of you before something forces you to take care of you, right? And so just want to put that out there for everyone.
And to piggyback off on that, mental health is wealth too. So yes, I agree.
I gotta steal that one. I like that.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I like that.
Don't try to take my tagline.
I love both of those. So audience, jot these notes down. Take this and don't just take it, but utilize it. And utilize it starting today. Take that time for yourself. Incorporate that self-care. Because if you are not up to par, then you can't help anyone else. So please, if you want to learn more about Smile Therapy, you can visit our website, www.smiletherapyservices.com. You can also visit us on LinkedIn, Smile Therapy Services. We're also on Instagram. Follow us at Smile Therapy LLC. And we're on Facebook. And we have a YouTube channel. We're all over, okay? We're all over social. So follow us. Come and get this mental health knowledge. If you're a part of our school system and you want to know how we can work with you to support your school staff, please reach out. You can reach out to me here on LinkedIn, or you can reach out through our Smile Therapy page. So we look forward to seeing you guys next month. Until then, please be safe and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.